the male bonding.
I can hear you thinking.
What am I thinking?
You're hungry. Other than that, it's pretty echoey in there.
It's a match made in mayhem.
You're a caveman, and God bless you.
That's really nice.
Hawaii Five-0, CBS Friday, or stream it live or on demand.
CBS Thursday.
Welcome.
TV's #1 comedy, The Big Bang Theory, brings you scientific breakthroughs.
The medium-sized asteroid is still an interesting discovery.
I suppose it could end up on a collision course with Earth and destroy life as we know it.
Ingenious inventions.
Our idea's really good.
I cooked it in the easy bake oven of my mind.
And fascinating facts.
For every action, you have a gigantic and annoying reaction.
Just when I thought you couldn't get any hotter.
Don't miss The Big Bang Theory, CBS Thursday, or stream it live or on demand.
Content.
And now, Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, Haviland Express Loop Sports Flash. For specials and more, go to HavilandSportsFlash.com.
I'm Justin Baker. To the Diamond, currently Atlanta up 1-0 as the Braves get a sacrifice fly from Ender Inciarte that scored Adonis Garcia in the top half of the third. They're now up 1-0 as Atlanta batting in the top of the fifth. Garcia today activated from the disabled list, and in order to make room for him, Atlanta designated Emilio Bonifacio for assignment. To the hardwood, where in the NBA, the Hawks formally introduced Travis Schlenk as the new general manager in a press conference this afternoon. And he came by the Kysii studios to chat with the Midday Show. He gave his philosophy on the upcoming draft and whether he likes to draft the best available players or just draft based on team needs.
One of the lessons I've learned in my past in Golden State is, we've made picks early in the draft off need, and it didn't work out for us, where we should have gone the other way and taken the best player. But as you get towards the end of the first round, then need starts to come in, and we've done that when you look at us historically.
Schlenk's former team, the Golden State Warriors, took care of the Cleveland Cavaliers last night in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. 38 points from Kevin Durant led the Warriors, while LeBron James was limited to just 28 for the Cavs. Game 2 set for Sunday night. And tomorrow, Atlanta United tries to make it 3 wins in a row, traveling to Vancouver. Both teams sit one spot below the playoff line in 7th place. It's a 5:30 kick, and you can hear it here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. With updates every 20 minutes, I'm Justin Baker from the Kysii Studios on your home of Saturday's Atlanta United match against Vancouver at 5:30. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Atlanta Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Ball players are not born great.
From scoreboards to rankings,
no one has come up for a substitute for hard work.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the records and the ballpark. We'll take you there.
We're talking Braves. The Game is everywhere. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Welcome back to the Doug Stewart Show. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. We're going to have my man on, Dan Walken, here in a second to talk some college football, writer from USA Today. But quickly, join Sports Radio 92.9 The Game for the 3rd annual Tailgate Fest, brought to you by Peach State Health Plan on Saturday, June 24th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Georgia World Congress Center, Yellow Lot off of Ivan Allen Boulevard. Tailgate Fest will feature a grilling and tailgate competition with cash prizes for each category and is free and open to the public. Enjoy some of Atlanta's best food trucks, music, and entertainment. Cool down at the beer garden. Then check out some of Atlanta's sweetest rides at the car and bike show area. 92.9 The Game's Tailgate Fest is now open for registration at 929thegame.com/tailgatefest. Let's go ahead and have my man on right now, Dan Walken, writer for USA Today, talking some college football. Dan, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm all right. How are you?
I am fantastic. Actually, I should say this evening, as it's about to get night here in ATL. So, Dan, let's talk some college football. I guess one of the bigger stories, and you're actually at the SEC meetings in Destin, Florida. And this part of the country, we love talking SEC anything. A big move being talked about where they're looking to move the Auburn Tigers to the SEC East. What gives?
Yeah, I honestly don't think this is going to happen. This is one of those stories that we have months and months of off-season to just kind of invent stuff. And look, Auburn is trying to start this conversation because the athletic director, Jay Jacobs, the old football coach, Pat Dye, who still has a lot of influence in their athletic department, this is something they've wanted for quite some time, and they can list out a whole bunch of reasons why. Largely, they say due to geography and sort of where their students come from, and the fact that they no longer play Florida, which is one of their big rivals, and yada, yada, yada. But the truth is, the SEC, I don't think, has any real interest in making this happen. And Auburn is trying to put this more in the public conversation that, maybe this gets brought to the table at some point. But there's some logistical challenges, even if people were open to it. Mainly, if you move Auburn to the east, you move Missouri to the west. What would happen to the Tennessee-Alabama game? This has always been sort of the real sticking point because they're not going to get rid of the Iron Bowl. Alabama and Auburn are always going to play. So if you move Auburn to the east, then Alabama becomes their permanent crossover opponent, and then Alabama would have to drop Tennessee, and no one's really willing to do that. So I think it's just one of those kind of fantasy conversations, and people love realignment, but I don't think it has any real traction.
Talking to Dan Walken, college football writer for USA Today on the Doug Stewart Show. He's at the SEC meetings down in Destin, Florida. All right, so something else is also out there is tweaking of the transfer rules, and it really kind of evolves around Malik Zaire, quarterback in Notre Dame, trying to make a move. If you remember, if you're a college football fan listening to the show right now, you remember there used to be a big battle. There was a big battle at Notre Dame on who was going to be the starting quarterback. Was it going to be Malik Zaire or was it going to be Deshaun Kaiser? Injury early in the season, and the rest is history. Deshaun Kaiser is now in the NFL. But tell my listeners what's going on with Malik Zaire trying to get down to the University of Florida.
Right. So let's go back several years. When Jeremiah Masoli, kicked out of Oregon, was trying to Ole Miss as a graduate student. And he did that. It didn't work very well. Academically, he didn't go to class. So the SEC presidents kind of soured on the whole graduate transfer idea, and they put some rules in place years ago that made it more restrictive for SEC schools to actually bring in graduate transfers. And so this has gone along, and over time they've sort of loosened the rules a little bit here and there. And yet I think the coaches kind of were saying, hey, look, why are we at a competitive disadvantage? This thing is not going away. There's more graduate transfers than ever. So why are we handcuffed in our ability to take some of these kids? And Florida, there's a kind of obscure rule that they had on the books that said if you had graduate transfers on your team and they didn't meet some minimum academic requirements, then for a period of 3 years you couldn't take any more graduate transfers. So Florida was under this restriction. But, they've been recruiting Malik Zaire. They want Malik Zaire. He wants to go to Florida. So Florida introduced this rule to basically get rid of this restriction, and they met about it, talked about it, and they removed it. So Malik Zaire is going to end up at Florida. Whether he's good or not is a whole different story. I'm a little skeptical myself, but the end result of all this is the SEC moved their rule to be more in line with the other conferences, and Malik Zaire is going to be at Florida next year.
Finishing up with Dan Walken, college football writer for USA Today on the Doug Stewart Show on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. So there's a big story out there that I hear a lot of people talking about today. At Kansas State, and Kansas State is rarely talked about a lot, but this is kind of in the news. They had a player, Corey Sutton, that wants to transfer, and Bill Snyder, who's been the longtime head coach of Kansas State, won't let the kid leave. He had 35 options that he presented to the school, and Snyder refused them all. And also, it's kind of getting messy where Snyder's talking about the kid having failed a couple of drug tests. I played college football, and this type of story always bothers me because we know coaches can come and go as they please. Why is there more to the story on why Bill Snyder doesn't want to allow this kid to leave, I guess, peacefully?
Right. Well, thankfully, has given this young man his full release. So he is going to be able to transfer free and clear, I think, because of the public pressure and the fact that, Bill Snyder really screwed up by talking about the drug tests, which you're just not supposed to do, and it could be a violation of privacy laws. So I think Kansas State was sort of backed into a corner here. But, from talking to people who were connected to Bill Snyder last night, the one thing that came very clear to me is this is not the first time this has happened. And the way he sort of looks at it is, if you come to Kansas State and you make a commitment to be here, then you should be here for 4 years and commit to it. And, I'm going to hold you accountable if you decide to make a decision because you're not happy with your playing time or whatever. Bill Snyder sort of takes it upon himself to, teach these life lessons and all that stuff. Well, I understand. He's old school, and I understand that in a perfect world, we'd all honor our commitments. But, the reality is 50% of college students transfer colleges. It's not just an athlete issue. This is something that happens, frankly, at a far greater rate with regular students than athletes. And as long as you're not paying these kids, as long as they are, quote, amateur athletes, I just am a firm belief they should be able to come and go as they please. And why are we holding them basically hostage in these situations? And I just don't think the coach should have the power to restrict where they go or to tell them they can't get a scholarship at a new school. And a lot of these tactics we've seen employed. And that's why we're having a national conversation about it. There is going to be a committee at the NCAA level to look at this entire transfer issue, and hopefully they will come up with some rules that take the power out of the hands of these coaches that they sort of use like a hammer on these kids, and so that we can avoid situations like this in the future.
Dan, we're kind of tight for time, but let's put a bow on this thing. Give me your, top storyline coming out of the ACC and the SEC this college football season. We're only a couple of months away from two-a-days, training camps, man. I'm so excited, like most of my listeners are. What's the number one story coming out of the ACC in your mind?
Just Florida State Clemson again. Those two programs have elevated to where they're on equal footing with the best in the SEC. They both recruit very well. They're going to maintain in the top 5, top 10 for a long time to come the way they're bringing in talent. And I just think it's Florida State Clemson, as far as the eye can see.
What about the SEC?
Alabama and everybody else. Who is the number 2 in that league at this point? I don't know anyone who's got a really good feel for that. Alabama seems to be so far ahead. Some people like Auburn, some people like LSU, and certainly they're going to have a different offensive philosophy this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But until somebody really comes up as a legitimate challenger, I think this league is just dominated by Alabama.
Wow, great stuff. Hey, Dan Walken, college football writer for USA Today. Dan, thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks, Doug.
There he is. Great stuff. The story with Bill Snyder, man, is real bothersome. Very bothersome because I actually went through the same thing. I transferred from, and it's not Division I football. I played division, I guess you would call it at the time, Division III football, and I transferred to another school, a school that I ultimately graduated from, South Carolina State College. And I had to sit out a year, which didn't make any sense. And you see these coaches go from one school to the other. And then the troubling thing about this for Bill Snyder is he threw the kid under the bus and talking about drug tests. As far as I know, you're not supposed to talk about that type of thing, and especially a college athlete. And so if the kid wanted to go and you don't want him to go, you're taking the opportunity to talk about how you did him a favor by keeping him on the team because he failed these drug tests. And you can look the story up. The kid's name is Corey Sutton, and Bill Snyder, once again, the longtime coach of Kansas State. So if the kid wanted to leave and he had been in all this trouble and been a knucklehead and whatnot, why didn't you let him go? If he was such a bad person that you felt like you needed to bring that up in the story. And not only that, Bill Snyder talked about how if they were to let this guy leave and 22 other starters wanted to leave, then they wouldn't have a program. First of all, if you got 22 starters wanting to leave your team at the same time, you need to look in the mirror. You need to be Michael Jackson and take a look in the mirror. That ain't gonna happen. So to make that point was ridiculous, man. And listen, I got much respect, or had much respect, for Bill Snyder. He's getting a little bit older right now. Maybe senility setting in a little bit. I don't know. Has done a bunch of great things. Been college coach of the year for many, many times. But this was a bad look. Yeah. All right.